Hey y'all, it's Carmia. I'm back with another video for a long awaited video. In this video, I'm going to be doing my labor and delivery story time or story experience, whatever. With footage, well, some footage because y'all know how that go, but I'll get into that later. So basically, if you guys watched my previous video, the pregnancy experience video, in that you'll know that I talked about how my cervix was incompetent and basically I had got a cerclage, right? So let's just pick it up from there. So basically, I got that done in July, the day of my birthday actually, and I was on bed rest because since my cervix had already opened and they basically like had to seal it shut, they didn't want me to like have any type of issues with it opening up, whatever, because it was a risk for it to open up because it is just like a string, for the most part. So basically, I got that. So I was on bed rest or whatever. Mind y'all, my due date was December 2nd. Okay, keep that in mind. My due date was December 2nd. And everything was going good. Like I said in my previous video, no one let me drive. Like I was literally doing absolutely nothing. Like I would go from room to room, taking care of my dog, laying up with my dog. Like that's all we did. And basically, I wasn't even like having sex, like nothing, right? I told y'all that I was having like chronic yeast infections and like BV and stuff like that because of my hormones, and I was taking the probiotics, but I don't know, it was just like, yeah, I was taking my probiotics. So anyways, I end up, I think it was October, it was like the end of September, like the last week of September, or maybe, yeah, it had to be the last week of September because I think I just went over this with my doctor not too long ago. It was like the last, because I ended up going to the hospital 2 times before I end up going into labor. So the first time, I went to the hospital. Well, I had called. I had. Let me start over. So I forgot exactly what day it was, but it was like either the end of September or the very beginning of October. And I remember I was sleeping and I woke up to cramping, right? And the cramping felt very similar to what I felt before my very first pregnancy when I had the experience, whatever. So I'm like, okay, these might be contractions. So I'm like, okay, let me just wait it out. Let me see. So I thought I could sit through or whatever. Like maybe I could just go back to sleep and it'll be okay. But it kept going on, whatever. So I'm like, nah, there's something might not be right. So I end up calling my doctor's emergency line, and I'm like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And they're like, oh, go to the emergency room. Let's see what's going on. So I go to the emergency room, and basically they were like, oh, they ran some tests, they did all this stuff. They're like, oh, you have it seemed like you may have an infection, and it looks like your body is like just reacting to the infection because basically your body start having like contractions naturally, but then like my body thought I was in labor or whatever, I don't know. Anyways, those contractions end up going away, whatever. Like, oh, come back if you have any other issues, da da da. I think I went back a second time, and then this time they gave me a steroid shot because they're like, girl, I don't know what's going on here, but we're gonna give you a steroid shot just in case. Mind y'all, this was around the last week of September, the beginning of October, and this was around the last week of September, beginning of October. So I was around 31 weeks or 32 weeks. At this time it was the beginning of October because I was in the hospital when my grandfather passed away. So I'm only 31 weeks at this time. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing a little freaking out, but I'm like, this still is like, God forbid anything happen, this is a reasonable time, it's like not like the end of the world. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So they end up giving me steroids. They still was running tests. They were still checking me because, I do have the cerclage, and they want to make sure that the cerclage is still good. They kept checking me. My cervix was still however it was before when they put the cerclage in. They were saying I'm good. At this point, this had to be October 3rd into the 4th, because I remember, because my grandfather passed away on the 3rd, and this was like the anniversary of my son, me losing my son. So I'm like, it was a lot going on, right? So I still was having contractions, but they end up stopping. I don't remember if they gave me something for them to stop, or if they just stopped on their own. They gave me antibiotics to treat. I'm assuming they gave me antibiotics to treat the infection, because why? What else would they freaking give me? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they gave me antibiotics. Anyways, a week later comes. Mind y'all, I'm like, hurry up, I'm taking my maternity pictures. I'm trying to do all this stuff because, like, something in my head was telling me, like, yeah, your son is about to come. But I really didn't want to believe that he was going to come. So, and then his grandmother, which, my husband's grandmother, which she's like, I don't know, every time she told me something, the junk keep coming true. So, she's like, girl, you about to have a baby. Even before I had the contraction, she was like, girl, you about to have a baby. Which I don't know how she be knowing. I swear to God, I don't know how she knows. But every time she literally tells me, like, before I find out I'm pregnant, she tells me, like, it's crazy. But anyways, and deep down in my heart, I knew he was coming soon, but I just didn't want to believe it. I'm like, nah, should be good, right? So I end up getting the infection, end up going away. Like, I'm good or whatever. I'm taking my antibiotics. But they did give me the steroids just in case, if anything should happen. That way his lungs will be more, like, they'll develop faster. So then October 12th comes. Or was it? It might have been the 11th. It was between the 11th and the 12th. I remember waking up, getting to contractions again, basically. And I remember it was, like, so bad. I called my doctor again, like, hey, I'm feeling these again. Like, I don't know what's going on. They're like, girl, go to the hospital. So, like, okay, whatever. Mind y'all, I had, my plan was to do a water birth at a birthing center. Mind y'all, I had already spoke to my doula. Like, we had already made the birthing plan. We had all this set in stone. How everything's about to get done. And I remember going there, and they were like, girl, you might be in labor, but you're not in active labor, but you might be in labor because you keep having these contractions. So I'm like, okay. So I'm, like, going through the motions. Like, I was throwing up. Well, actually, before I even threw up, I was going through the motions. They put an IV. Like, they're like, oh, we're not going to give you anything to eat. Let's just see how it goes. Mind y'all, they usually, like, when you give birth in a hospital, they don't recommend you eat anything before you give birth or whatever, because so they were, like, kind of treating me like I was about to give birth. I'm like, girl, y'all need to stop, because I'm not giving birth. Like, no. And then I kept having contractions. Like, it was on and on. Like, it didn't stop. So it just kept progressively getting worse, but it wasn't, like, nothing crazy. And then, like, my water didn't break, my cervix still wasn't opening, nothing like that. And then I get to a point in the day now this is okay, so I had to go into the hospital on October 11th, because then it was the next day. It was October 12th now, and it was like it may have been like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or something like that, maybe even a little bit later. But they're like, oh, my doctor finally comes in. She's like, you may be able to go home. Like, you say your contractions are like lessening, which they really were. They were, like, less, and I couldn't tell you how close they were before, but it was getting less. Like, it wasn't as fat, it wasn't speeding up, it wasn't staying the same. It actually was getting less time in between. So I'm like, yeah, like, it's feel like it's going away. And I wasn't in active labor because my cervix wasn't opening. Of course, they kept checking because I have the cerclage in, and they didn't want me to start dilating with the cerclage in. Like, they wanted to take that out before I started dilating. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I'm just hungry. Like, can I have something to eat? Because I just kept eating ice, whatever. So, like, okay, no worries. Like, I have the nurse come in, get you something to eat, da da da. So I think the nurse ended up coming in, giving me, like, crackers or something like that. And I remember because I was, like, slightly bleeding, but nothing, like, crazy. And I was telling them that, like, I was slightly bleeding. And I didn't lose no mucus plug or anything. Like, yeah, like, no signs of active labor. So, yeah, so then I remember I was eating my crackers, still kind of having, like, contractions, but nothing crazy, and I ended up throwing up. So then I didn't want to say nothing to the nurses or anything. Like, I don't know, but my husband was like, no, you need to tell them. So he ended up telling them, like, I was like, because they were like, oh, how you feeling? Like, oh, I'm feeling better. And then my husband's like, yeah, she just threw up. so so they're like, oh, you just threw up? Okay. Either the nurse or my doctor came back and was like, yeah, girl, so instead of us sending you home, we're just going to send you to the other side. Because at this point, I was on the labor and delivery side. So we're just going to send you to the recovery side. And, you know, if everything looks good for the until then, you know, you could get home, sent home the next day. I'm like, okay, no problem. That's fine. As soon as, like, that happened, my contractions started getting crazy. Like, dang, like, what the heck? So this was around, now this is around, like, had to be, like, around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or something like that. I don't even know how the time was just going. It was just going. So yeah, so then they wheeled me over to the next room, and then, you know, the other nurse came in. She was like, just let me know if you need anything. Let me know if, you know, if you start bleeding or if anything, you know, starts getting worse, whatever. I'm like, okay, no problem. So at this time, it may have been 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that, and I'm trying to go to sleep. Can't go to sleep. That contractions going crazy. Like, I'm like, I was at this point, I'm fully going through it. So I'm like asking my husband, I'm like, should I say anything because the contractions are getting worse, but like I'm not really noticing anything else. Like, I don't know. So I'm like, okay, let me just wait it out for a little bit, because he was at this point, he's half asleep. He's not even freaking. He's just going. He don't even care what the hell going on. So then I end up having to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom and I see blood. So I'm like now this time it was like a noticeable amount of blood. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should say something. So I waited again, and I had another really bad contraction. So I'm like, nah, something ain't going on. Like, I don't know. Maybe I should call the nurse. So I end up calling the nurse in. She's like, okay, I'll just have the other nurse come in and check his, you know, your cervix, whatever. Which I will say, it was so freaking annoying how many times they had to go inside me and check me, because like, if you know, you know. So she ends up checking me. She's like, girl, you dilated about 4 centimeters. I'm like, huh? I'm dilated 4 centimeters. What do you mean? I was so flabbergasted. I'm like, ain't no way he about to come right now. Ain't no way. So they're like, yeah, so we're gonna just move you to the delivery room. We're just gonna do that. We're just gonna get you prepared. I'm gonna call your doctor, tell her that she gotta come back because, you know, you're in labor and we have to remove the stitches, the cerclage. I'm like, there's no way that I'm in labor right now. So he ended up calling my husband ended up calling my whole family, whatever. Everybody's like freaking out, nervous. You know, the doctor and the nurses are basically reassuring me that, you know, everything's gonna be good. You know, he's at a good state or whatever, where, you know, he just probably need a little bit of oxygen or whatever. He probably is going to be in a NICU for a couple weeks. You know, the steroids, this is what the steroids are meant to do, to help you know, progress his lungs or whatever. So I'm like, okay. And then I'm going to the room, and they took this, I don't even remember, they obviously had to take the cerclage out, which I don't remember them even doing that. Like, till this day, I can't remember them taking the cerclage out. I think I was just too focused on the contractions that I was having, which you don't have to, the original plan was to get my cerclage taken out at the actual OBG place or whatever, because you don't have to go through surgery or whatever. They're just removing the stitches. So because I was dilating with the cerclage in, I end up ripping my cervix a little bit. So they didn't know if I had not my cervix, I guess it's my cervix. Yeah. So they were trying to figure out if I was going to have to get an epidural before I gave birth or after, because they needed to obviously stitch me up, and they didn't know, you know, if I would have to go immediately after, or if I was going to have time to get it, you know, whatever it may be. So my whole goal wasn't to get a epidural at all, but I will tell y'all, I was low-key hoping I had to get an epidural because the way them contractions were, I'm like, nah, I don't know. Even though in the video, I don't know when I'm gonna insert it, in the video, you'll see me, like, I kind of wasn't like I wasn't like ODing, and then I didn't even have time to call my doula either. Like, everything happened so freaking fast. It was so annoying. because I wanted my doula there as well. But anyways, because like nothing was going as planned or whatever. Like I wanted to labor how I wanted to labor. Like it was just so annoying. So anyways, yeah. So I then so yeah, so they ended up taking this cerclage out, and they was like, "Oh no, you don't have to get epidural." And my doctor knew like I didn't want an epidural. She kind of knew like some of my plan, not my whole plan, because we didn't even get that far yet. So they basically was like, "Okay, well, yeah, just let me know when when you're ready to push, when it feels like you have to like poop or whatever. Like let me know." I'm like, "Okay," so I'm just going through the motions, just going through the contractions, and I guess it was because like in certain movies, you see the doctors like running around, the doctors and nurses running around trying to get everything together. No, everybody was moving slow. Like they was just taking their time. You had the NICU nurses getting the stuff prepared. You had the regular nurses just getting everything prepared. And my doctor I think my doctor walked out the room. Like it was just like everybody was just calm, moving at a slow pace, whatever. Which in the end, I actually, liked or whatever. I didn't, it kind of helped me because I wasn't freaking out or anything like that. So I was just trying to go through the motions. I was trying to remember like what I heard, like, taking deep breaths, just breathing through the contractions, trying to like stay calm, everything like that. Like it was some point where my doula actually confirmed that it was like my beta morphins or something like that kicking in, and I was like really relaxed, and like I guess my body was telling me like I'm safe enough to have this child at this location, whatever. To the point where like I was like really relaxed, and my husband was like, "You good? Like you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. Like I'm just going through it, whatever." And
we got baby on his way. Mommy is 9.5 centimeters dilated. Going through it, but she's strong. Focusing on her breathing. Yeah, it's either you're gonna have your eyes closed or you're gonna have it open. You trying to get some rest? What you doing there, meditating? How you feeling? That's how you feeling?
Good.
You feeling good? You saying that because of the camera, or you you actually feeling good? You're doing a good job, baby. Just keep breathing.
You're doing great.
Focus on your breathing, baby. You're doing a good job.
Was the bed broken? You had the bed broken?
You want him immediately?
my husband was recording, but then a nurse came in and was like, oh, it's policy that you can't record, which I remember signing the paper, and it said, I felt like the paper said I could record, but I don't remember. But this was also why I was mad, because on Instagram is this girl called Sacred Birth Doula, and she basically has this package called Rights Over My Birth package, and basically in that package it has everything where you can like delay cord clamping and delay, all this stuff to have a safe and healthy natural birth in the hospital without having to basically go through the hospitals and their stupid policies, whatever. So basically she was like making a big deal about that, which I'm mad because I could have had that and gave that to them, and I was contemplating on buying it at the time, but I'm like, nah, I probably wouldn't need it, whatever. And I wasn't thinking those weeks that I was having the contractions, whatever, to like hurry up and buy it. I don't know why I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking about other stuff. Anyways, yeah. So I'm mad because I could have recorded the whole thing, but it's okay. I got some footage, and some of the pictures that he took is live, so I'm gonna insert that or whatever. So yeah, so then I got to the point where I kind of felt like I had to poop, but I didn't know. Like it felt like it, but I wasn't sure what was going on. So then I told my doctor, and she's like, okay, whatever. She checked me, and I was dilated 10 centimeters. And I'm telling this kind of like slow, but everything happened really fast. Like it was like not even an hour from 4 centimeters to freaking 10 centimeters. Like everything happened so freaking fast. So she was like, yeah, just push whenever you have a contraction or whatever. I'm like, okay, but I don't remember having contractions when I was pushing. Like, I feel like I was just going with the motions. Like, I low-key think I was just letting my body do what I had to do because I didn't know what that was going on. And I kind of wanted to see. So she was like, oh, do you want a mirror? I'm like, yeah, I want a mirror. And they had a mirror, but I had to put my glasses on because I couldn't see without my glasses. So, because I didn't wear my contacts because I wasn't expecting to give birth, and my hair would have been a little bit better. So I had this crappy wig. Well, it wasn't crappy, but I had the wig on from when I did my photo shoot, and that wig wasn't done. Anyways, long story short, yeah, so I'm pushing, and I'm like, I was just pushing, and I remember screaming when his head came out. But I don't know why I did all that, because I really don't even, like, why did I do that? Like, when my doctor looked at me when I was doing that, I kind of, like, stopped screaming, because, like, girl, why are you screaming? Like, there's no point. Whatever. So maybe if I was in a different position, whatever, but I wasn't even impressed about any of that. Like, I felt pretty comfortable in that position. I didn't know, like, I don't remember my body telling me, like, oh, I had to push in this position. But maybe if I would have allowed my body to do that, I don't know. But that's what the birthing package would have, gave me rights over picking how I wanted to be positioned and while I give birth or whatever. So yeah, so it only took about, once his head came out, which took about a couple pushes, his whole body came out in one push, and the rest of his body, and I was just looking at him like I think in the picture you'll see, like, I was just looking at him like I didn't touch him or anything. Like, I didn't know what to do, and they put him on my chest, but like I didn't know what to do, and I didn't even get to do chest to chest or skin to skin at that time either, because he high key couldn't even be on me that long. They wanted to make sure that he could breathe on his own for real, and he could, because he did cry, and he smiled when I said, I was like, oh hi baby or something like that, and he smiled at me, and it was like so nice. And then the nurses ended up taking a picture for us or whatever. Then the NICU nurses had to take him and stuff like that.
Hey, sweet baby. I got one picture. Look at me. He's like,
and which I kind of like, I didn't have him put any of that stuff on his eyes, and thank God I kind of told my husband like what I didn't want or whatever, because they were just laying on everything, and he was kind of like, I know she don't want this and I know she don't want that, but everything else y'all gotta ask her, because I don't know, which I'm grateful for, because we didn't really go into detail of all the things that I wanted and didn't want him to do, whatever. Like, I didn't want the stuff on his eyes, I didn't want the case shot, whatever that was, I don't know, all this other stuff that I was telling them. And luckily, he was able to basically tell them like, no, nothing. Like, don't do nothing until my wife is able to come down here and let y'all know what she wants or whatever. And fun fact, they almost gave my baby a circumcision, even though I said on the paper that I didn't want a circumcision. Like the NICU nurse called me like, oh, hey, just let you know, like, you know, they have the doctor in today to do the circumcision if you want him to get it done today. I'm like, no, he's not getting circumcised. Like, why you, like, she's like, oh my God, like, I thank God I called because I thought, which actually happened to my husband, he was accidentally circumcised. But anyways, yeah, so that was basically my labor and delivery story. I can go into details about my NICU experience, but it's not really a long. It was a long experience, but I think I'll talk about that, and I think I'll do a breastfeeding journey or whatever, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Wish I could have more footage to add. Excuse me, but it's okay. The next one, when I give birth next time, I will have all the footage. Excuse me, I will have all the footage or whatever. But yeah, basically that was it. To hear more about my pregnancy experiences and to keep updated with that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button, and don't forget to hit that notification button to stay updated with all my videos and to get a notification every time I post a video. Comment down below if you had a similar experience to me or what your experience was. I'd love to know and chat with you in the bottom. But yeah, basically that's it, and I'll catch you guys in my next video.